How's it going, my friend? It is Danny here from projectmanaverse.com, real world technical project management for beginners. And today I'm going to give you 3 pro tips for managing meetings. I'm going to briefly explain what sort of meetings you might have as a project manager. I'll then explain why it's really important that you manage them well and run them well as a project manager. And then I'll give you the pro tips. So first of all, why is it important that you do this well as a project manager? Well, first of all, your role as a project manager requires lots and lots of meetings, unfortunately, and you'll find that most of your day will be filled with meetings, and many of those meetings will be chaired by you. You will run the meetings. So it's a big part of what you do. So it pays to understand how to run these well, so you get a good return in the investment for the majority of your time. And also, as a project manager, one of your primary roles is getting the right people together to move things forward. Because as a project manager, you can't really deliver the project yourself. You're there to coordinate the resources, the people on your team, the people in the business, your satellite team members. You're there to coordinate and manage all those people to produce the results, to deliver the project. And you can't really deliver the project yourself. So a big part of your role is speaking to people, getting the best out of people, communicating with people, and that requires meetings. So it's an essential part of project management. You're there to bring the right people together. That's one of the number one roles as a project manager, is bringing the right people together to get the outcomes that are required to deliver the project and unblock the roadblocks where required. Also, I like to think of, I always use the analogy of a project manager is there to lay the track of the project. So if you imagine your project as a freight train going a million miles an hour, it's full steam ahead, it's almost out of control, but you're there to go just a bit ahead of the train and lay that track to make sure it stays on path and that journey ahead is smooth, so it doesn't derail and crash. You can't do that for the entire project, unfortunately. You can't, in your planning phase, just figure out exactly the route that's going to happen, or the twists and turns that are going to happen, and figure that out from the start, because you're not a genius, or even if you are a genius, you're not a supercomputer that can figure that out. So you can't lay down that track right from the start. You have to lay it down just a few weeks or a month ahead of the project to make sure that the train doesn't derail and it keeps going forward. And I always think of putting those meetings in, the essential meetings, is part of that track laying. It's part of that process. So that's another reason why you should take this seriously and really understand how to get the best out of your meetings. So what sort of meetings do you have as a technical project manager? Well, the outcomes you want to get from meetings are usually, you want to get someone's agreement on something, or a general agreement on something. You want to influence something, or influence someone to do something, or get their agreement on something. You want to make a decision on something. You want to plan something, or you want to resolve a problem. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Or you just want to communicate a message and increase someone's understanding or your own understanding of some kind of topic. That's pretty much the meetings that it comes down to. And you might do that through comms meetings, or status update meetings, or your project working group, or decision meetings, or risk and issue meetings. There's various recurring meetings that you have as a project manager, and just listed a few there. But those are the kind of meetings you have as a project manager. And as I say, it will take up a lot of your diary time. The bigger the project and the more you're responsible for, the more meetings you'll have on various different subjects. And as I say, many of them will be chaired by you. So it really does pay to understand how to run meetings well and get the best out of them. So let's move on to the good part. What are my 3 pro tips for doing this? These are all high leverage tips. And when I say high leverage, I mean you put in a small amount of investment and you get a big return for your time or your energy. It's about Archimedes, who said that if you have a lever long enough, you can move the earth. It's that principle, right? You just put in a bit of force and you get a massive amount of return for that. So these are high leverage tips. They're really important. Tip number 1 is, when you're setting up the meeting and you're sending out the invite, have a purpose, a meeting purpose, and some meeting objectives. Very simple, and they can be a bullet point each, very brief, very simple. But what that does, and the purpose is just what's the general theme of the meeting, and the objectives are what are you trying to get out of the meeting? What was the specific tangible outcome that you want out of that meeting? Is it to agree something? Is it to decide something? Is it to agree next steps? Whatever it is, make sure the outcome is very clear and bulleted. Now that does two things that are very powerful. Number one, what often happens in organizations, and it always happens and it's very common, people will send out meeting invites, but they won't describe what the meeting is about. They just have a general meeting heading, and you might be able to guess vaguely what it's about from that heading, but you don't exactly know what they're looking to get out of the meeting or what they want from you. So sometimes people will just decline those meetings, not even come along. So number one, it really helps people to understand if they need to go to that meeting, because if you make it very clear what the meeting is about and what specific outcomes you want, they will either say, yep, that makes sense, I can certainly help with that, and they'll accept, or they'll say, well, I get that, but maybe there's someone better qualified to help with that, so I'll send it on to them. They can go instead, or they'll come as well. Or they'll just say, well, I can't actually add any value to this meeting, so I'll decline it with a reason why. So it helps the person you're sending the meeting out to, and it's just general courtesy as well. The other thing it does, which is like the hidden benefit, the really powerful one, is that it forces you to really think about if you need that meeting, because often you'll just put in a meeting and not think about the real outcome that you want. But it forces you to stop and think, right, what's this meeting about? What do I actually want to get out of it? What are those specific outcomes? Because once you know that, that will unconsciously or subconsciously will guide the direction of the meeting. It will help you'll coordinate it and you'll manage it and you'll steer it in a way that those outcomes are being met and delivered. If you don't have that clear goal at the start of the meeting, then you can just talk about something for a good half an hour. It feels like you're very productive and busy, but you haven't really gained much from that meeting. But if you know exactly what it is you want out of that meeting, you will guide it unconsciously to that outcome. And if you find that you're going off track, then you can bring yourself back. And especially if you share that with everyone at the start of the meeting, flash up the invite and say, just to remind you guys, here's the purpose of what we're here today. Sorry, this is why we're here today. Here are the outcomes we're trying to achieve. So everyone can see that. Any questions? No? Okay, let's crack on. And if you veer off topic, then you can, guys, sorry to interrupt, but just to remind you, this is what we're here to do today. We're not really gonna get this result if we carry on this trajectory. So you can bring everyone back to the main topic and get the outcome you want. So that's the first tip, and it's very powerful. Put your purpose and your meeting objective in the invite. Number two, at the end of the call, make sure you summarize the general key points and the next steps and actions. If you only have to do one of them, make sure it's the actions. The actions are the key thing. So summarize the next steps and the actions. If you can summarize very high level the key points that were discussed in the meeting, great, but don't worry too much. The most important thing is what are the next steps, because number one, it reminds everyone what you need to do next. And if people missed an action on the call, if you're assigning an action saying, John, you need to do this, and they didn't potentially respond on the meeting, it just triggers them and reminds them that they have to do something at the end of it. It's that kind of final mental note. Or if they miss the action in the first place, or they'll ask the question and say, oh yeah, sorry, I didn't hear you, or yes, that's fine, I need to do it. That's number one. But also what it does is it gives this sense that you are in control as a project manager. It's a hidden benefit of doing that. If you're in a meeting, and I've been on these meetings many times, you'll talk and talk for the whole meeting. A lot is discussed. Some of the times they're very complex if it's about technical project management. And at the end of the call, the project manager or the person leading the call will go, oh, great, good call, everyone. Right, we'll end it there. And they won't go over the key points, or they won't just summarize next steps. And it makes everyone just feel a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Not confident, the opposite of not confident. They don't have much faith in, that seemed a bit vague. We really know what the next steps are. They don't have that sense of, yep, we know what we're doing. Let's move on. It doesn't give that people a sense of confidence, especially you as a project manager. You always want to be giving that sense to your team and communicating with your body language and what you do with your behaviors, that you are in control and you're switched on, you're a good project manager. And doing this at the end of every meeting is just one of those things that you can do to contribute to that feeling of, yep, this guy's in control, he's a good project manager, I trust him, he's taking care of everything, he knows what's coming up, he knows what the next steps are, and he'll make sure they happen. So that's the next thing you should do. Just make sure you summarize, if you can, the key points of the meeting, but if not, just the next steps and the specific actions that people took in that meeting. Now, my last pro tip is just, as you're going through the meeting, just capture some minutes, either on the screen as you're doing it with everyone, although that can put you on the spot a bit, especially if you struggle with typing under pressure, or just do it in the background on a piece of paper or on a notepad on your screen. But just make sure you're capturing those key bullet points of the meeting, and when the meeting is finished, just send out those key minutes so people can review what was said. If anything that was said wasn't, I suppose, clearly communicated, or people weren't actually aligned when you thought they were, person A thought you were doing, John thought you were doing A and Sarah thought you were doing B, this is the time where you can put the minutes in, just clarify that. So if there are any misunderstandings, they can go back to you and say, oh, I thought you said we were doing this. So you can just flush those things out. Otherwise, a week can go by and you revisit the meeting, and it turns out you weren't all on the same page and you've wasted time. So number one, it gets everyone on the same page, clarifies what you're doing, again, that sense of confidence. And then also, you want to capture the actions as well. So as I mentioned, at the end of the call, you want to summarize the actions, but in your meeting minutes as well, you want to summarize those actions and put who is doing them, and if you can, just put when that action is actually due as well. So now what you can do, once you have those minutes they're sent out, you can follow up on the actions. You can use that email as a reference in the future. You can say, John, did you do your action X? It's on this email, and they'll go, oh yeah, I've got to do that. It's a good little reminder. And also, if you have any disputes in the future about what was agreed or said on that call, you've got the minutes and the evidence there as well. Also, one other benefit, if people missed the meeting or they couldn't attend it, they can quickly read what the minutes were. Now, I used to do like really amazing minutes and really detailed and spend a lot of time on them, but I realized that wasn't really a high return on an investment. It was good to do, but the bang for my buck wasn't there, so to speak. So now I just do very, very key bullet points that I could just ping out in a couple of minutes, type out in a couple of minutes and send out, rather than spending half an hour writing like really high quality meetings where this guy said this and then he frowned, and a detailed description of exactly what was said on the meeting. Just make it very brief, and here are the key points, here are the salient points, and send them out with the actions. And you can follow up on those actions using that email if you need to down the line. Okay, those are my 3 pro tips. They will definitely benefit you as a project manager. I strongly recommend that you use these because you get such a return on investment from doing this. It really, really does help. So get on it. Okay, that's the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this one, just hit the subscribe button. I'm doing daily videos, so just get your bite-sized 10-minute video every day, and you'll soon be up to speed on all the tactics you need as a technical project manager to really make it in this game. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.